The crazy paradoxes of energy policy were exposed last week when I showed you the uber-woke, uber-green authorities in California who've been pushing the renewable energy and electric vehicle agenda. Well, they were asking people not to charge their EVs over the weekend lest they run out of power. Well, it's a similar story in the UK at the moment where they're pushing EVs, of course, onto motorists there. But over the past couple of days, reports suggest power prices will be crippling for electric vehicle users, with some estimates showing it won't be long before it costs you more to charge an EV than it does to fill a car with petrol. With all this in play, it was good to hear some brutal honesty from the outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He finishes up in the job tonight. But before he went, he exposed how the UK had dropped the ball on nuclear power over the past 3 decades.
How many new nuclear power stations have we built in the 27 years since? How many have been connected to the grid? How many slices of bread can we toast with the additional nuclear power we've created? How many washing machines can we power? How many families have been helped with extra nuclear energy? The answer is none. Zero. Zilch. The French, who have loads of nuclear power stations already, have built 4 more since 1995, bringing their total reactor fleet up to about 56. The Indians have added about 12. The Chinese have built more than 50 additional nuclear reactors since 1995.
Yeah, Johnson's got to wear some of the blame himself, of course. The Conservatives have been indolent on nuclear and they've tried to push renewables instead. Still, it's useful for this outgoing Prime Minister to bell the cat.
I will diagnose the problem. It's called myopia. It's called short-termism. It's a chronic case of politicians not being able to see beyond the political cycle. For 13 years, the previous Labour government did absolutely nothing to develop this country's nuclear industry. They said it didn't make economic sense. I think they even said that in their manifesto. Well, thanks a bunch, Tony, and thanks a bunch, Gordon. Tell that to British businesses and industries that are now desperately short of affordable and reliable electricity. Tell that to families that are struggling with the cost of heat and light this winter.
Yeah, and of course, there are key lessons here to be learned by Australia if only we'd listen. We need to act now, as soon as possible, and we need to be realistic about costs.
Yes, nuclear always looks, when you begin, it always looks relatively expensive to build and to run. But it is, look at what's happening today. Look at the results of Putin's war. It is certainly cheap by comparison with hydrocarbons today.
Yeah, as I keep saying, to deny the compelling case for nuclear power is to ignore science. It's to be a science denier. Science, practical needs, economics and national security all demand we go down the nuclear path. The only sticking point is politics. Joining me now is Nick Cater, the Executive Director of the Menzies Research Centre. Thanks for joining us, Nick. The only sticking point is politics, but gee, there's anemic politics, has been for a long while on both sides of politics, but I feel the momentum is starting to shift because the logic, the facts, the science is starting to dominate.
That's right. The momentum is very definitely there, Chris, and there's two reasons for it. One is we need nuclear right now. You can see what's happening in Europe. You know, that the whole delusion that you can get by with just wind and solar alone and maybe a few batteries has come crumbling in Europe. I mean, their dirty little secret, they were getting all that gas and coal from Russia just to keep the coal fires, the home fires burning when the windmills weren't running, etc. That's come home to roost now, and the same will happen here. And we are going to be seeing coal stations closed between now and 2030. We're going to see about 60% of our coal capacity going out of production according to AEMO, and all of it by 2043. What replaces it? Because we can't get by with renewables alone, and this massive program of renewable building at the moment is just so futile, I think. The sooner we own up to the fact that we need a reliable baseload source, basically, and if it's not going to be coal, and most people seem to have come to the conclusion it won't be coal, and probably not gas for baseload on that scale, then it has to be nuclear. And the other thing, of course, that's changed is the technology, Chris. As you know, there are small modular reactors now, which are very just about to come into production, which are very, very different from the great big nuclear power stations that we knew and loved in The Simpsons. But so these are much, much more manageable.
Well, the good thing about the small modular reactors too is that they can be produced much more quickly. So when Australia finally makes the right decision, we can act much more quickly. Now, just on that, of course, the coalition are investigating this. They're saying they're up for the debate. How quickly will they move? Surely by the end of this term, surely to the next election, Peter Dutton can at least be promising to get rid of the legislative bans on nuclear energy, just so that the industry knows that it can actually be legally viable in this country.
Yeah, I think very definitely he should be looking to do that, and I'm pretty confident he will take that to the next election. But, you know, I think they've got to go the next stage, and that's actually to have a plan for how and where and when and who will pay for small modular reactors, because we need them so urgently, Chris. We just can't really wait for these. And the obvious place to put them first off is in some of the existing coal-fired power plants where you've got all the wires, all the poles and wires are there. You don't have to build any of that. You just put in these new units to pick up and run. And we could have them, I think, you know, in theory, we could have them in by 2030. There's no problem there, but we do need to take the next election. But I think Dutton has to be very careful. He should not go in half-baked on this. He's going to be grilled and pushed not just by Labor but by the renewable energy lobby, which will, you know, squeal like a cornered cat over this. So he's going to have everything there, all the facts to hand, including the costings. And so I think that's a big bit of work that the coalition has to do in opposition between now and probably the end of 2024.
And they've got to do it. They've got to get cracking. Thanks for joining us, Nick. I appreciate it. Nick Cater there in Canberra. You can read his piece on nuclear in today's Australian.